Welcome back! Today we are sharing with you 6 different trees that we are planning to plant in our orchard just to cut them down in a few years.
Why would you plant trees just to cut them down in a few years?
Well, watch this video and we'll explain it all. We see a lot of focus on nitrogen fixing plants when it comes to designing a food forest, especially in the permaculture community. And you see a lot of different rules. Some people say you have to plant every second tree as a nitrogen fixer. Some people say a third tree is enough. And people come up with all sorts of different rules and arrangements to try to match the nitrogen fixing trees to the rest of the orchard, to diversify. And this is good, but however, it can also be misguiding because some people may just decide to, okay, this is very simple, and so I'm going to order a couple of hundred honey locust tree, and then they will plant a whole bunch of honey locust tree in between their fruit trees, and then several years later they realize maybe it's not working that great in their system, it's not really what they were looking for, and that's it's a waste of space. And it's still better than not having a diversified orchard for sure, but this oversimplification puts us in a blind spot, and so we may miss the opportunity to look around us and look at the native forest around where you're placing your orchard, and then bringing all those native plants in and trying to build relationships with those. And what we found out is many of those plants are also nitrogen fixers. So that's what we're going to focus on, is bringing some of those native nitrogen fixers into the orchard, as well as other early successional trees.
So what we find will work better with our plan is to focus more on these native early successional species that we have in our area. They're already well adapted to the climate, to the soil, and they thrive here for a reason. So everybody has different soil types, everything like this. And so that's what we're going to focus on, integrating the native early successional species, and many of them fix nitrogen already. That's one of the strengths of the early successionals is they really help get that soil started after any disturbance or in poor conditions. So the best thing to do is to observe what naturally grows in your area. So for example, the main field where we want to start our orchard was covered in knapweed, and at first you see all the knapweed, you're like, oh my god, we have to somehow do something about this, get it out of here. But knapweed is an early successional species. It had the ability to grow in this really nutrient poor, disturbed, just like really bad soil that nothing else would. So at least the knapweed was able to keep all the get it roots down, start layering down some biomass, exactly, to keep at least the soil from blowing away. So anyway, so you have to let those plants have their time, and as they grow, die, and make the soil healthy again, other plants will come in that are adapted to this next stage of succession, and will eventually outcompete the knapweed. So as scary as it is, I mean, of course you can do other things. You could still plant other successional species, kind of give them a jump start to get the knapweed out sooner, or graze knapweed and with the sheep. But again, you have to let that succession go. Have its
play its course.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's the knapweed has a job. Once it's done with its job, it doesn't need to hang out anymore. So if the soil is built up enough, then all we have to do is introduce the next succession, and then we can speed up the process.
Exactly.
Right?
It's just observing.
Well, a lot of people worry about it. They're like, oh, it's so hard to get rid of. How can I get rid of? And then they attack it with different methods. But by doing so, they always putting the soil back in a worse condition, so of course it will come back because the job is not finished. So today we're talking about 6 different plants, trees and shrubs that are really good for early succession planting. So we want to take our soil to the next level. So you start by observing the area around. That's what we have been doing for the last year. We take walks in the nature, find out what's really growing well here, and we make a big list. And today we're sharing our top 6 choices Of course, those are for our area.
Yeah.
It's very important to choose varieties that are native to your area for early succession planting. For one, you want to minimize disturbance to your environment. If you introduce one of these plants from somewhere far, they have a big potential to become invasive because they're really good at growing in poor soil. They don't need much support, so a lot of these plants in the wrong context they could become invasive. And the other reason is that your transition from the food forest to the forest area around you becomes a lot more smooth. You have much more options in developing yields, and you learn more how to utilize those plants that are available around you. So integrate with your natural environment much better.
And it's also, I mean, the ones that are already growing in your area take less water and inputs and anything to thrive. So it's just easier. Like, why? Less work the better, you know? So yeah, and it'll also attract all those native animals and wildlife and insects. Everything is better. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, okay, so without any further ado, let's jump into our first tree.
Yay! So our first tree is aspen, which is commonly known as trembling aspen or quaking aspen, Populus tremuloides, and it's found throughout BC on the east side of the Coast Mountains. So it's really rare to find it on the west side. But anywhere you go in BC, you can see aspen groves. They're really cool in that they reproduce through suckers. So you could see a grove or a clump of aspen and they're genetically identical. So they're just clones of themselves. So cool. So and they can cover huge areas of land. One genetically identical organism can cover huge area of land and can grow for thousands of years. You can wait until spring and all the trees that are genetically identical will bud at the same time, or in fall they all lose their leaves at the same time. So that's how you can look at a big group and tell that there are multiple groups of clones there. So because aspen reproduces through suckering, they are common in disturbed areas, so areas of fire or where they've been harvested. That's when they come up and they thrive. They grow really fast, but they're short-lived. And they're very important for wildlife. So bears use them to escape predators or dogs or whatever. We saw that a lot in the summer. And they're important as browse. The young saplings are very important in winter for wildlife.
Next up is willow. Willow is in the Salix genus, and the Salix genus is huge. There's over or around 400 species in that genus. So there's lots of different types of willows out there. But we're particularly excited about willows because they're really easy to grow from cutting. They basically produce their own hormone, and the hormone is concentrated at the tip of the new growth, especially, but it exists throughout the stems. So basically you have to get a stick and then put it in the ground. As long as it's moist enough, it will grow into a new tree.
Awesome.
And also people extract rooting hormone from willow naturally, so that's a really good source for a nursery. So it would be great to have that around. We are planting our willows all toward the west side of the orchard, and that's away from any of the underground pipes. They have a tendency to seek water. It's crazy how they can sense that, but they're really good, notorious for seeking underground pipes and breaking into them to extract the waters. Like they kind of listen to that underground water movement. And so yeah, we make sure that they're away from any pipes. And we're also really excited about growing willow for basketry. We never tried it, but I've heard it's very popular around here.
Yeah.
And I want to. That's one of the things we're really excited to learn. To grow that for that. But willow has many uses. It's got lots of medicinal uses, and so we will plant a few different types. Willows are commonly managed by coppicing and pollarding. So what that means is that you can cut the tree down all the way to the ground, and it will produce new growth. And that's how the basketry willow is usually grown. Is that every year they will harvest all the stems and then cut it all the way to the ground, and new shoots grow, and give you the perfect size willow stems. It can also be pollarded, so you may have seen it in different landscapes along the creeks. Maybe they planted, but they're cut at a certain height. But again, as an early successional tree, it's excellent. They require a lot of water to establish, but it doesn't mean that they need that much water to maintain once they're established.
So the next shrub we're really excited about is elderberry. Here in BC, we have 3 native species. Red elderberry and black elderberry. Oh, they're all in the Sambucus genus, which is actually in the honeysuckle family, which I thought was pretty cool. But so the red elderberry and the black elderberry that are native to BC tend to be found in the low to subalpine elevations in more moist areas. So around here, where we're drier and we're in the valley bottom, we find the blue elderberry more commonly. So that's the one that we're going to start with integrating into the orchard, just because it's already growing around here. Why not, again, just kind of move it along and integrate it into the orchard. So and elderberry responds well to coppicing, so cutting it down, letting that material integrate into the soil, and then it grows right back again. We have heard, so black and red elderberry are really easy to reproduce through just cuttings, just putting, cut it and put it in the soil, water a lot, and they grow. And we've heard conflicting things about the local blue elderberry. So some local farmers we had talked to say they've had a really hard time with reproducing through cuttings. But then other reading we've done said that you can. So I guess it depends on, your local area and your soil and things like this. So.
But we also found out that it grows really easy from seed.
Yeah.
So it might actually be worthwhile to plant that one from seed.
I think we're going to try both methods, just because our soil is different from the people just 30 kilometers down the river, or the river. So we're going to try that.
Yeah, materials readily
available. Exactly, the materials around here. Why not give it a go? See what we can do. And also, again, very important wildlife shrub. Lots of animals eat the berries, and also the seeds are very. A lot of animals like the seeds too, and the vegetation is great browse. So that's another. I'm excited about that one. It's such a beautiful shrub as well. So and I love it in winter too. It just looks nice in winter.
And we take elderberry syrup all winter.
Exactly,
so
so that's right. So
it's great medicine.
People use Actually, a lot of people eat the berries raw, right off the shrub as well. Especially the blue ones. People do. Yeah,
I did not
you
know
can eat
that,
it.
actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
the next tree on our list is poplar. We are so lucky that there's a huge abundance of poplar trees around here at Balahadane. When the Dukubors settled here and they built their villages, they planted a type of hybrid poplar as shuttlebutt around each village. So in some places you just see sort of a square stand of poplars and the whole village is gone. But some of the trees are really old and grown tall, and there's also new growth coming all the way around them. So there's we have huge source that we can tap into for cuttings. They grow again very easily from cutting. And they can grow in soil that is very poor, and just like some of the other species we talked about, again they're making really excellent early successional tree. And what some of the research that we found is that even though poplars and salix actually both, so the willows are the same way, they don't have the nodules. And a lot of people, when they think about nitrogen fixing plants, they think that they must have nodules. And what we found out is that some researchers took this clue that, okay, here are some early succession trees. They grow in soil that's very poor in nitrogen, and adding nitrogen doesn't seem to improve growth. So they started digging more into it, and they found that they actually harbor nitrogen-fixing bacteria within the plant tissue itself. So they actually have bacteria inside the leaves and the stems that are fixing nitrogen. So, and because they also take both salix that we talked about and poplars, they take cutting or coppicing and pollarding very well. They can be an excellent source of ramial wood chips, and that's the best source of wood chips for orchard. By doing coppicing and pollarding, we can have a really great supply in our orchard. So that's why we, all of these trees that we're planting, we're planning on actually cutting them down regularly.
Keeping them alive, but cutting them down.
Yeah, and so... and I mean, I will plant, and then some of them we have to take over. And another great role that they play in the orchard is actually providing shelter for new trees. So young trees don't do very well with constant wind or a lot of sun, a lot of heat. So actually having some mature trees or bigger trees around them would help them grow better if managed correctly. So So that's why this year we are starting with all of these super fast growing. Hybrid poplar is one of the fastest growing trees out there, and so it will put a ton of biomass, but it also creates a little bit of shelter for those younger seedlings that we're going to put in the future years as our nursery grows. And so as the orchard is growing, we will cut more of those down and then replace them with fruit trees that we intend to keep in the orchard.
Poplars also, same with aspen, anything in the, a lot of trees in the populus genus are great for mushrooms, right?
Yes, yeah.
How can you forget?
Yeah, we love some of our favorite mushrooms grow so well.
Yes.
Oyster mushrooms,
Yes.
they grow really good in poplars, lion's mane and bear's head. So those are some of the mushrooms that we are sort of planning to
Incorporate.
We're going to grow them in a few different ways. In the logs and also in wood chips, and see how that goes.
So the next shrub that we're going to talk about is buckbrush. So this is one that we weren't actually familiar with when we moved to the area. It took a bit of research for us to find out, because we never saw it in Kamloops and other parts of BC we lived. We just didn't come across it. So so buckbrush is in the Ceanothus genus. There's a few native plants in that genus. And it's found most commonly on dry, disturbed sites with very poor soil, and typically open areas, or on like a forest edge. So there's quite a bit of it here in Udushenya. My mom has memories when she was young growing up, and it was everywhere, because Udushenya is very sandy, and it just thrives in that because nothing else does. So she talks about, and my mom actually mentions the smell of buckbrush. It has a kind of an sweet oily smell. So buckbrush is often seen in an area after say like a wildfire comes through, because the seeds require heat to germinate. So it's often seen one of the first successional species that come in after a wildfire. Buckbrush also has nitrogen fixing nodules on it. So again, another really great shrub to have to start establishing soil, or establishing a healthy soil. So they retain their leaves over winter, which is again another really great reason, a really great
characteristic. That's one of the things that really grabbed our attention at first, because we saw them where other plants didn't have any foliage. It's a great source of food for animals in winter. And finally, the last tree on our list today is alder. Again, alder is another one of those great early succession tree or shrub. Here we have, we have the native red alder tree in BC, but what's really common here is a few shrubby alder varieties, and so we're going to utilize those as much as we can. They're a little bit harder to, what we found out in our research is that they're hard to propagate from cutting, but they're easy to propagate from seed. So we're gonna try that. And again, excellent source of ramial wood chips. They take coppicing and pollarding very well. Coppicing would be very easy way to manage them because they're shrubby anyways. Thank you so much for watching another one of our videos, and please feel free to like and subscribe. And keep in touch and leave a comment.
And if there are any early successional trees or plants that you think that we should talk about or add into our orchard, please let us know, and we can do a bit of research. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
Bye.